Hello. Sorry, I am late. Oh my God. Hang on, guys. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay, Sharon.
I love you.
Love you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Where at?
Ben's, I think.
Okay. I'll see you then.
Okay, bye.
Love you.
Love you too. Sorry, guys.
However, I can't get a beanie because training's cancelled.
Oh, okay, no worries.
I'll get it when I go up there.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye. Oh my God. As soon as it goes live, I get a visitor. Isn't that always the way it happens? My gosh. I actually thought it was hubby home from work when he was only here an hour ago, but now the cat's up here. Dear Lord Jesus, stop it. I'm going to say hello to everyone before we get another interruption. Oh, I don't know if Brandy's still here. And Hurricane Camille, hello. Twiggy, how are you? True Crime Insanity with KC. Hi, Lawton Girl. Oh, Hercule's still here. T. Riley's here. Gymnastics. How are you? Where's your tardy note? I know. Well, I didn't actually schedule, so. And then as I went to hit the live button, I had a call and I was on the call for an hour. So Lisa Jones is here. Here she is, Miss Jackie Jude. Chilling with Ben. Hello. Haven't seen you before. Welcome. I've missed you, Sharon. So good to see you. So good to see you too, Lawton Girl. Yeah, I'm much better. It's a lot when you don't understand what's going on in your own self. But I don't know if I explained it properly the other day. Like I've always had anxiety and stuff, but this was a bit different over the last 2 months. And I like to know why things happen and fully understanding it. Like I know I'm feeling this, but I need to know why and what's going on with it. And I didn't. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't describe it. And it wasn't until I was sitting there listening to Cam. I actually heard him speak about it twice. Twice within a 12-hour period because he was on Ziggy's and spoke freely and deeply about it. And then he did his own live on his own channel the next day and went through things again. And there was just so much in different things he would say that he talks and thinks about to himself. I thought that's exactly where I'm at. And I didn't understand that all them feelings like stem from childhood. Like, and gymnastics I've been reading, the book you sent me, and it has done wonders as well. Like, I can't thank you enough. It's amazing. But yeah, I feel back on track and a lot better. And I still admire Cam so much for Shady's back. Now I'm going to have that song in my head all night. Look who's back. Shady's back. I love that song. I was thinking about you today. I haven't seen you in forever. I haven't seen her in forever either. You sweet lady, somehow I've got a wrench by mistake. No, you don't have it by mistake. So take challenge. Don't worry, you don't have to use it. It's completely fine, gymnastics. She's got a, I think Brandy's got a wrench too. Brandy should have a wrench. I'll just go over here and have a quick look. Wait, hang on a second. Because I'm in StreamYard. We all know I'm rusty. Wait, hang on a second. Hang on. Gymnastics, yes, you have a wrench. Because you can't actually see who has wrenches and who doesn't when you're in StreamYard. Ooh. I thought Brandy had a wrench. She does now. That's crazy. But I haven't been in studio forever either, so that could be why. I hope you're doing a lot better, T. Riley. Now it's on top chat, not live chat. Little live chat reminder, guys. I often forget when I'm in chats to switch it over to live chat at the top. I never even knew about it until about 6 months ago. I didn't think there was a difference, but there is. Live chat, you'll get every single comment, and top chat, there's selected comments. Twiggy, I know, I haven't seen you in forever either. Suzanne had a wrench. She was whacking people. I've still got a bit of the flu. I think Suzanne's still in Queensland. She's on holidays up in the warm weather. Lucky her. It's about 9 degrees Celsius here today, raining and freezing. So the fire's all cranked up. This is Jackie Jude's YouTube home. That's so sweet, Jackie Jude. Thank you so much. So, T. Riley. I've been thinking of you too, T. Riley. I hope you're good. Now, yeah, it takes longer to come through on the StreamYard chat because I'm going to order one of them dual screen phones. The new Samsung ones. You have 2 screens on it and you can do 2 things at the same time. Then I can be doubly confused. Oh my God, Twiggy, me too. Do you think she's going to appeal? I think she will. I hope she doesn't for her own sake, but I really do think she will. But yeah, it was my youngest daughter and I would text all day. I'd stay awake up all night watching it. That's another reason it took me 3 nights sleep to get over my last 2 nights of staying awake. She can't afford it. Well, no. Hi, John QQ. How are you? Great to see you. But one of it's not a channel I can even, it just come up as I was playing one video ended, it just automatically started playing this other one. And it was a podcaster talking about, he's an actual lawyer who does defamation cases. And he was saying that in his opinion, he feels she will, but it has to be on a technicality that they have to prove that the judge was biased or wrong in some of her rulings. So it'll be interesting. But I was so glad, so happy with the outcome. I think the jury did an awesome job. I hope she gets on with her life and leaves well enough alone. Yeah, I think if it was me, gymnastics, I would. Why would you want to go through all of that again when it was like obviously to try and get out of paying 8 million, 8.35 million, but how much is it going to cost her to go back to court again? Like, it's got to be massive, these court bills. Oh, thanks, Jackie. Yeah, hit the like button, guys. That would be awesome. You think the job did a great... I can't read now. I think the judge did a great job as well. Yeah, she was pretty good. But Johnny he was hilarious. And his male lawyer that sat to the right of him, both of them. Oh, that's so sweet, John. Well, I'm back to annoy everybody. It's been crazy. Even without the trial, I'm going to talk about Tahnee Shanks in a little bit. But guys, I listen to crime podcasts either on YouTube or on an app on my phone. The one I use is called Podcast Addict, and you just subscribe to different audio podcasts, okay? Now, I was listening to one last night because there was nothing else to catch up on with YouTube. Australian crime. And I was, I'm going to play it. I've emailed the host, but I haven't heard back from him yet. And because I was on the phone, I haven't had time to put it in the description, but I'll drop the link to 2 different podcasts. One is the one I'm going to play, which is called The Minds of Madness. I checked him out on YouTube, but he hasn't had, he's only got 3 videos up, and they were 3 years ago. So he mainly just uses the audio podcast streaming type apps, not so much YouTube, but he does really, really good stuff. And I learned a lot. Can anyone put a 1 in the chat if you have ever heard of the Redheaded murders? And I'll explain in a second why it's piqued my interest. Nobody? That's interesting. I'd never heard of it either. But it was a serial killer in Tennessee in 1980s. And no, Lisa hasn't heard of it. So this guy just went for redheads. It's crazy, like absolutely crazy. And the murders themselves have nothing to do with Summer's case, but the agency and what they've done is concerning to me. So a rough overview before I play it. It goes for like 45 minutes, I think. This podcaster come across information about a Jane Doe. He starts looking into trying to find out who this Jane Doe was, and he puts a Facebook post up, and a high school teacher who teaches sociology got in contact with him and said, "Oh, do you mind if I have a chat with you about the Jane Doe, because I think she might be related or a victim of the Redhead murders?" And the podcaster had, his name's Shane Mortis, had no clue about it. And then they started chatting, and the podcaster ends up, long story short, working with the class at high school and the teacher. They become their own little community. They start sleuthing this serial killer and trying to identify all the victims, because a lot of them, 5 of them I think in total, were Jane Does, and they all had red hair. So they reach out to the TBI and try to get information, or just have a conversation with the TBI. They want nothing to do with it, and they shut both of them down, like I'm back. I don't know what happened, but everything stopped. So I had to reboot the whole thing. I think it's a connection issue. Yes, it was. Hi, May Hazel. How are you? Oh, thanks, Lawton girl. We hear you fine. Oh, that's good. I'm on the laptop in the house, and sometimes it gets a bit hot. I don't know why. It is nice to see Jackie and everybody back. I don't know if Susan will make it because she's on holidays. Why have I got a red? I've got a little alarm thing happening here. Hi, Cold Case Crystal. You might have heard of the Redhead murders. Have you, Cold Case Crystal? I'm getting all these little pop-up things coming up now. I know it is about time I'm back. I'm good. Was here from the start, but only said hello and then went lurking. There's nothing wrong with lurking. Sometimes it's good to lurk. Not that comes to mind. I wonder why no one has heard about this. And he was a serial killer in Tennessee. Bizzo! Hello! My little Fizzle, I just love this kid so much. I have adopted children all over YouTube because I'm so old, you know. So I know I'm live. I got so brave, Fizzle. I'm back to my silliness. Yes, I just love her. She said, I don't know. I can't even describe Fizzle. I know I haven't met her in real life, but I intend to one day, whether she likes it or not. I actually Googled yesterday how much a return ticket to Nashville is from Sydney, and it's $3,147. I thought that's doable. Now I just have to find somewhere to stay. So, you're so glad. I am too. So, with these Redhead murders, the TBI did not want to collaborate with the sources about the case of 16 women being murdered in Tennessee. And I'm just going to skip all the middle bits regarding the actual murders and stuff like that, just because the other guy explains it phenomenally. But at the end of this story, when they nut out exactly who the murderer was, the TBI run and do a press conference prior to even informing the family that this was about to happen. And they own the whole investigation, that they've been working on it for so many years and take all the credit. And one of the victims actually the first Jane Doe's sister was in the live chat, and she's blew up. She has lost her shit big time because she knew that the people working on this case was a podcaster, was a high school teacher, and his class of sociology. And to me, that just was like, and apparently the TBI, as the podcaster explains, they didn't bother with the case because the women that were targeted, and we're all going to know this term, were all lot lizards. Okay, so they referred to them as the throwaway society because they never missed. The majority of the time, family don't report that they're missing or even notice that they're not here anymore. So that's how a lot of serial killers get away with it. But yeah, so how do we honestly know that the TBI are going to stay on Summer's case and keep going hard when the family are not screaming out for answers? Oh, stop. Hang on, guys. I've got to get rid of the Discord notifications. They don't do it on my phone. They only do it on the laptop. But anyway, I'm going to play this if I can get it back again. And I will put the links in the chat. And if you just come in, this podcast has done an overview, okay, of the whole case. But the guy, the podcaster in this story, has a YouTube channel. I've emailed him and I want to speak to him directly about his interactions with the TBI over the last couple of years while he was dealing with this case, because I think it's really, really relevant to understand. I went and put your link everywhere. Thanks, Fizzle. You were so gorgeous. Yeah, so the other, it's called Foul Play. And he has an 8 or 9 part series, which I'll show you after we finish listening to this. But this is really interesting, even if we're not critically thinking about TBI. The story in itself is pretty cool too. I've lost brain cells listening to a certain person's life. In Summer's case, I'm glad to hear a different case, to be honest. I think, yeah, I get that cold case, Crystal. Sharon, we just have to have faith that they will. Summer's case has lots of attention. Yeah, I was thinking that too, gymnastics. Like with all the calls and reports and everything they're getting from YouTube, hopefully that works the same way as Summer's family, you know, where all she's got. So we can't, I'm not saying we should be ringing TBI every day. That's not what I'm trying to say. But yeah, we have to keep making a noise and talking about it. To let things go cold anytime soon. Yeah, I don't think anyone is going to let it go. Okay. So this is the short The Minds of Madness. As I was saying, it's not on YouTube. This one's you can only listen to this one either on a podcast app. I use Podcast Addict. And while this is playing, I'll get the other tab up. But it is an interesting story, as well as interesting listening to the way the TBI handled it. So we'll go with it.
The opinions expressed in the following episode do not necessarily reflect those of the Minds of Madness podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
A long-forgotten mystery involving 6 murder victims and 5 Jane Does. You'll hear how a podcaster and a group of high school students work together to crack a 30-year-old mystery and identify a serial killer. Driving along Americans' interstates and highways, it's not uncommon to pass white crosses on the side of the road. They're roadside memorials, a marker placed in the final location where loved ones passed away, most commonly from traffic accidents. But in 6 locations along various interstates, stretching 700 miles from Arkansas to West Virginia, there are an entirely different set of crosses along the road. These ones are red, and they weren't traffic accidents. They were murders. And the person responsible for each of these victims was a serial killer, targeting women he believed society wouldn't care if they were missing. And ultimately, he got away with it, because he was right. This is a unique case, unlike any other we've ever told, because it involves a podcast host who went beyond what you'd normally expect from a podcaster. Shane Waters is a gentle giant with a talent for digging deep into cases, sometimes further than even law enforcement themselves. With a background in private investigation, Shane isn't confined by what information he finds available on cases he covers online. With boots on the ground, Shane travels to interview family members of victims, detectives, or anyone who could provide answers. And that's what he did in this case.
So in early 2017, my cousin who lives in Barberville, Kentucky, had reached out to me. She saw this really old cemetery on a big hill. And in the back of the cemetery, in the very back, there is a small stone that says Jane Doe. And that really caught her attention. She had never seen something like that before, and she sent me a photo. And immediately I thought, who is this? The date on it was in the early 1980s, and I just wondered, how do we not know who this woman is? So I looked up anything I could find on her online. There was some old articles that were written about her. She was found on April 1st, 1985. She was completely nude, and her body was found inside of an old white Admiral refrigerator.
The refrigerator Shane was referring to was one of those old-style ones that latched from the outside, notoriously known in the 50s for trapping children who were unfortunate enough to get inside. So many children actually died from getting stuck inside and suffocating. They were made illegal in 1956. Even so, it wasn't uncommon to find these old refrigerators illegally dumped in woods alongside highways decades later, with children still getting trapped and suffocating in the abandoned fridges. As Shane tried to find out more information on the Jane Doe, he was surprised to find very little.
There was nothing in the news recently. There was nothing about her being identified, and I thought that was very strange. Besides her being nude, there was no other pieces of clothing found with her except 2 necklaces. One of them was an eagle that was in flight, and the other one was a heart pendant. And I remember writing that down, thinking that it may be important later. So I went to Barbourville, Kentucky. I was able to track down some locals who remembered her being found. And some of the locals told me that when she was found, everyone in the community was really curious on who she was. No one recognized her. They held a funeral for her. Everyone in the community and the surrounding community came to it, trying to identify her. No one knew who she was. So the cemetery that she's buried in was actually a family cemetery, and that family donated the plot for her. The town got together to buy her the stone.
While Shane was in Barbourville, he managed to track down the detective who originally worked the case with the Kentucky State Police back in 1985. After heading over to the retired detective's home to discuss the case with him, Shane was shocked by what he learned.
So he brings out these 2 large boxes. And I'm going through all of these documents, all these photos, the necklaces is there, and all of the evidence for this case. They're not at the Kentucky State Police Station. Later on, I was able to track down an eyewitness who sees this woman before she's murdered. The eyewitness name is Bruce. Bruce was a manager at the truck stop. The truck stop was known for having a lot of sex workers at it. This manager knew that it was a bad issue. That night at the truck stop, there was a young woman matching the description of the victim that would be later found in the fridge. And one of the waitresses at the restaurant recognized that one of the truckers was likely going to pay for her services. And so what he saw was that she was getting into this flat nose semi-truck that was red. And the description that he gave matched the description that she looked like. As he saw that they were getting into the truck pulls out. When it gets to the light, the truck drives left, and left would bring you to the location of where her body would be found the next morning.
The county coroner at the time wasn't a medical doctor. He believed the unidentified woman most likely had been smothered in some way, although strangulation couldn't be ruled out. There was also another possibility. Perhaps it had something to do with the very reason the old fridges had been banned in the first place. Maybe the woman had accidentally locked herself inside and suffocated. But why on earth would a woman, without any clothes on, purposely place herself inside an abandoned fridge, in the woods, in the middle of the night? Maybe she was hiding from someone. But who? And why? Along with the rest of the evidence the detective had in his home was a thick notepad filled with handwritten notes, something that piqued Shane's interest.
I asked him what was with the notepad, and he said, well, when we found this woman, we realized that this could be one of the Redhead murder victims. And I was like, well, what's that? Never heard of that before. And he said that back in the 80s, when this was happening, over a course of about 2 months, a certain type of woman was being murdered. They were all redheads. It was involving strangulation and involving sex workers at truck stops. They were being found around the Tennessee, Kentucky area, West Virginia, Arkansas, etc. And they quickly realized that it could be a serial killer. So he had to go to this big meeting in Nashville, Tennessee, where the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation was holding this big meeting with all of these other detectives from these other areas about could all these be linked. So here I had this big thick notepad of all of his notes from this week-long meeting about each of these victims. And at that meeting, they were talking about like 16, maybe 17 victims that could be linked. Again, these were all redheaded women, strangled sex workers at truck stops. So that's how many people they were thinking could be linked. But he said after that meeting, it didn't really go anywhere, and it kind of fizzled out, and everyone went their own way. And that's really how this whole thing started.
Any progress made by law enforcement into the Redhead murders seemed to have fizzled out sometime around the late 80s. And now, 30 years later, a podcaster from Indiana was beginning to rework the case.
The next thing that happens in all of this is I'm looking at all of these women. There's 16 of them. And I'm thinking, How in the world are there 16 women here? I have never heard about the Redhead murders. I've never heard about this case. I'm in Indiana. I'm not that far from Kentucky, one state above. How have I never heard about any of this? So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to start looking into this, seeing, what can I do to help? So out of all of these victims, I start looking to see, could any of them actually be connected, or were they just wasting their time back then? So I started looking more at the specifics on what type of location these women are being found in, what type of people these women are, the manner of death, things like that. I narrowed it down to 6 women, and then I started looking more into each of those 6 women, each of those 6 individual cases. And out of the 6 women, all of them were still Jane Doe victims, except one of them.
Shane had no idea he was about to find himself in the middle of a mission to not only find a serial killer, but the identities of 5 unknown female victims as well. Using what little information he had, Shane traveled to West Memphis, Arkansas to investigate the unsolved murder of the only victim who'd been identified, Lisa Nichols.
Her body was found September 16th, 1984. She was found along I-40, as if you're heading outside of West Memphis, Arkansas. She was only found wearing a sweater, nothing else. About 9 months later, in June, 2 people who knew her came forward and said that they recognized her. And this is really what sparked the fire in me and what really got me devoted to the case. Because the detective back then, who was in charge of solving the case, was being interviewed when she was identified. He was quoted as saying, "Lisa Nichols has a drug problem worse than my car has a gasoline problem." And he said, "She has a prostitution record that stretches from the floor to the ceiling 2 times." Now, this is the very person who should be going out to the public asking them for their help. Now, this is the person who should be
I don't know if I have to stop regularly or not, because it's not a YouTube thing. But this is when I started, like, the whole thing interests me, but this is when it starts getting a little bit aggravating, I will say. Yeah, that's amazing, cold case, Crystal. What are the chances? It's such a small world that your parents took up donations for her funeral. They actually talk about that as well during this podcast. They took donations and the funeral director, oh, that is awesome. I can't believe it. It's crazy to me. We'll keep going.
asking everyone, hey, we have a victim of a murder here. Can you come help me? Get the public to care. How do you get them to care if you're calling her a prostitute, calling her a drug addict? You don't. If this is how detectives are treating them, this is how society is going to treat them.
Then sensitive words spoken by the original detective not only sparked a fire in Shane, they provided a revelation. It suddenly became clear to Shane why the killer was targeting these particular women, because he knew he could get away with it.
One thing that I learned later is that Lisa Nichols had a daughter when she went missing. She had a very young daughter. They both disappeared around the same time. After Lisa was found murdered, no one ever found her daughter. She is still missing. No one is looking for her. There is no record of her. There is no adoption record of her. She was just never found. But I think that it's important for people to realize that there's a young child out there that could have been murdered or taken, and we need to keep her on our minds.
Shane decided to bring the new information to relevant authorities and contacted the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, the same agency that had convened the original Redhead murders conferences back in the 80s.
So I reached out to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the TBI, and during my phone call, they told me that there was no one actively working the case, that this was with their cold case division, but there was no one actively working on it. So I kept up with them, kept contacting them, and finally they told me it was going to be assigned to someone. Eventually, I asked if I could speak to someone about it because I was starting to collect information like the Lisa Nichols and the daughter thing, and I thought that was important. Also, I had the original detective. He has all the original files. I thought that would be important for them to know. And I wanted to be able to give that to whoever is responsible for all of these. I'm just a podcaster from Indiana. I cannot make an arrest or run DNA. I have no power here. So I wanted to be able to provide that to them. And the lady who I spoke with on the phone told me that she'd passed the message, but if they want to communicate with me, they'll call me. And then she hung up on me. So I never received anything from them and basically was just given their general email to give tips to. Okay, that's fine. I'm a podcaster. I'm a no one. That's fine. So again, I'm just out here in Arkansas at that point doing my thing. And I just thought, well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Keep on keeping on, Shane. Let's do this.
By this point, Shane had been investigating the case for more than 5 months. He was hooked and determined to find answers. And although law enforcement didn't seem eager to work with him, he was about to get some help from an unlikely source.
I'm out on the road doing this all by myself, lonely me in a car, feeling like I'm against a wall, facing off with the TBI who's not going to help me. And I get this message from this high school teacher in Elizabethton, Tennessee, from Alex Campbell. He's a sociology teacher. And he writes me and he says, "Hey Shane, I teach sociology class and I try to teach my students a little outside of the box. And for this semester, we wanted to find a Jane Doe in our community and find out maybe why she is still a Jane Doe. And the only one in our community, we looked her up, and the only thing that we can find about her is that she may have once been a part of this Redhead murders group. And the only thing that we can find on it is a Facebook post that you've made. That's the only thing since the 80s that's anywhere in sight. Would you be willing to talk to me about this?" And I said, "Hey, Alex, I'd love to. I'll come to you. I'll come talk to you."
After receiving the call from the high school teacher, Shane drove to Elizabethton in far eastern Tennessee to speak with a classroom of students. He had no idea at the time they would soon become his greatest asset, his sidekicks, in solving a mystery more than 30 years in the making. So I was flying home from CrimeCon in Vegas last week, and I'd just gotten to the airport, and I suddenly got an email saying my flight was delayed. Puzzle game to lose yourself in, because you're having without the R. Best.
Now, he tasked the students to look at every single one of the cases that the TBI had once looked at and ask them, based on what he taught them about how to profile serial killers, ask them which ones could be linked. And I kid you not, if these students didn't all combine and they picked out the exact same 6 that I picked out. Now, they had no way to know. Alex didn't know which ones I picked out. So I go back to the school. They tell me what all they found out. We were able to create this 8-page profile of a serial killer. And the profile goes down to the very details of where they think this guy is out of. One important thing to know is that all these women are being disposed of on the side of interstates. And it's believed they were being picked up at truck stops. Again, they are sex workers. And they're all very young, redhead women. And we also knew that they were all being strangled.
The level of detail and insight these students put into their serial killer profile they created, simply through analyzing the 6 victims, was quite frankly remarkable. They determined the killer was most likely a trucker operating out of Knoxville, Tennessee. They connected the timing of the first known murders to a law called the Motor Carriers Act of 1980, which deregulated the trucking industry and dramatically increased the number of new small trucking companies. They believed once the killer began trucking, he had a newfound opportunity to begin killing. They even concluded that their killer was most likely involved in a long-term personal relationship, possibly even a wife. Shane and the class then came up with the name for the serial killer they were looking for, the Bible Belt Strangler.
We wanted to reach the attention of as many people as we could because we wanted to identify these women. So they organized a press conference and they invited the press from every small town where all these women were found in hopes that these local people would find these stories and identify some of these women. But at the same time, I was creating these Facebook posts of images of these women, and I was publishing them alongside this press conference that was going out. So the press conference goes out. We invited all the original detectives to come out and all the current detectives in the areas where these women were found. We also invited the TBI. The TBI refused to come. So Alex and I explained to the TBI that we will have to tell the news agencies, all of the new news agencies that are coming here, that they're going to have to call a podcaster and some high school students because the TBI doesn't want their information. They suddenly gave us a number for people to call. But I remember as I was walking up to the door and I saw all of the press that was there, and I just thought, Shane, what did you get yourself into? There's this thought of, I'm way over my head. I'm going to make people mad. What if the guy's out there? What if he sees this? There's just a lot of things that came to my mind, and it was very overwhelming.
So there Shane was, giving a press conference to a host of local news agencies. Was any of it going to help? Was there any way they could actually make a difference in these unsolved cases? A podcaster and some high school students trying to identify 5 Jane Does and 1 serial killer. It all seemed a bit crazy. But then something strange happened. 6 cases that had remained unsolved for 30 years with stagnant investigations started to see movement.
One of the Facebook posts ended up reaching this lady out of Spindale, North Carolina. The lady sees this Facebook post of this woman, and this is specifically the Jane Doe out of Barberville, and she thinks, wow, that sure looks like my niece's mom. And she thought, I'll just go ahead and contact the Kentucky State Police and let them know that I think this might be my niece's mom. So she does that, and she also contacts me, and the Kentucky State Police called the possible woman's daughter. Her name is Elizabeth. She was just born when her mom disappeared. So Elizabeth never knew her mom, never knew what happened. And in her mind, she kind of thought maybe her mom just abandoned her, and ran off and had a new family. Just what she thought. So she was really hesitant to talk about it. And eventually she did agree to talk to me. And so we had a really long conversation over the phone. And she told me about her mom and how her dad came home one day and her mom had disappeared and just found her in a diaper, just laying on the floor, basically crying. Her mom's name was Espy Regina Pilgrim. Her mom had a history of having some mental breakdowns. So Elizabeth believed that her mom may have gone through some postpartum depression, and that may have been why she suddenly got up and left. Her mom did have a history of arrests for sex working.
As Shane spoke with Elizabeth, it sounded more and more likely her mother could really be the Barberville Jane Doe.
When I talked to Elizabeth, I asked her, what did your mom look like? Did you have any pictures of her? And her mom was very short. And one thing that stuck out about this woman in the fridge, short. She was 4 foot something, very petite, and that matched her mom. She also had a C-section scar that matches her mom. But then I knew about the 2 necklaces, the eagle and the heart pendant. So I asked her, without giving that information to her, do you know of any jewelry your mom would have had? She asked her older brother, who would have had a better relationship with her because he was much older than her, if he knew of any jewelry that she would have kept on her. And he said yes, she had a few. One of them was a heart that their stepdad gave her for their anniversary. And the other was an eagle. And I asked about the eagle. I was like, why an eagle? That's so random. What's the significance of an eagle? And she said, well, he's not happy about this. But my brother broke into a high school and stole this necklace, which was the mascot. And it was of an eagle that was in flight, and ended up giving it to my mom as a gift many years after he did it. And she just kept it because it was a cool pendant. And so here in my mind, I thought, okay, hi, Espy. Now we know who you are.
DNA testing would later confirm what Shane had already figured out, that Espy Pilgrim was in fact the Barberville Jane Doe, a watershed moment. Not only had he accomplished what he'd originally set out to discover, it also meant the plan devised by the students was working. Word was getting out and people were noticing.
I tracked down one of the original detectives that works out of Tennessee, and I asked him about the cases in Tennessee and the TBI's original investigation. And I asked him if he believed that there were other women beyond just these 6 that myself and these kids narrowed it down to. And he said, I have no doubt that there are more, but you'll never find them. And I was kind of taken aback. I was like, what do you mean I'll never find them? And he's like, I think that they would have been marked as suicides. And I asked why. And he said, because they're throwaway people. And I had never heard that term before in my life. And I had to have him explain that to me. And he said, well, Shane, a throwaway person is someone who society deems as disposable. So if you are homeless, if you have a drug problem, if you're a sex worker, you're a throwaway person. And he's like, that's just the way that things were back then.
This perception of throwaways by many law enforcement back in the 80s was a sad truth. It was the moment Shane realized the case was becoming much more personal than he'd ever anticipated.
Okay, Shane, this is why you have a much bigger stake in all of this.
I'm still here, Jackie. Hubby just come home, so I had to relocate to the bedroom. Leah, that is insane. My Meemaw tried to be, I was a wild child and horrible teenager. Oh, thank you, Fizzle. You are such a little cutie. Made my night. I was watching rerun Addams Family episodes. Oh my God, this is way better. I just instantly was so aggravated when I was listening to this at 1 a.m. that the TBI just wanted nothing to do with it. Like, this isn't the TBI from 30 years ago. The guy who was the TBI detective he's interacting with, it's the current TBI that he's had problems with, that didn't want to work with him. Like, it just speaks volumes. So when people, to all my fellow creators, when we doubt that, you know, are we making a difference? I absolutely 1,000,000% believe that we are, if we are speaking for showing faces, all of it has to make a difference. I really want this Shane Mortars to email me back. I would love to have a conversation with him. Yeah, it looks like it is, like I've never doubted the cover-ups for a second, but and the daughter, the little girl that to this day is still missing. That was another thing. I know, throw away people, Twiggy. It just makes you sick, doesn't it, that detectives 30 years later just didn't want a bar of it at all. Yeah, exactly, wee Frosty. Oh, I have to get it out and we might play it tomorrow, Fizzle, if that's okay. Look, I'm not trying to say all law enforcement are dodgy, but there is room for improvement, and I'm not a hater of law enforcement, but there are concerns, absolutely. I get a lot. I can get you lots of footage of the bar. Oh, really? Great. Yeah, that would be awesome, Cold Case. Maybe we could do it together. Because we've been talking about doing something together for ages. My email's running along the bottom. If you want to send me an email and we'll get together. We'll keep going.
Because at one point in my life, I was a throwaway person. It was my senior year of high school, and I had nowhere to go. And so I was living in a closet at the school for most of the time. No one knew I was doing it. And I knew that if I got caught, it would likely prevent me from going to college. And I knew if I could just get myself to college, I could get out of the situation. I was abandoned and I couldn't rely on other people and I didn't trust anyone. So I knew that I could only trust myself and I could only rely on myself. So I could have easily have been in the position of these women. But what separated me from them was that this person took away their opportunity to leave, to get out. I knew I could work myself out of being homeless if I could get myself to college. He strangled them to death before they could ever leave. He stole that from them. So for the rest of eternity, they would be treated as throwaway people because that's how they were treated when they were killed by this person. So all that goes to say, if I would have been killed when I was homeless, would I have been treated like a throwaway person compared to if I was killed today?
Feeling a strong personal connection with the victims, Shane decided to do something bold. Place crosses along the highways as roadside memorials. In the various locations, the women's bodies have been discovered. But these crosses weren't white. He'd painted them red.
I drive home and I get my brother to help me. We go collect wood and we paint these red wooden crosses that we make. I go to the location where each of these women were found and put these crosses at. And the idea behind it was that if this guy didn't care about them, and if these detectives didn't care about them, and if society didn't care about them, then I just wanted to do my part in thinking that at least someone cared. Because I'm sure you've driven along an interstate before and you've seen a cross, and you know, as soon as you see it, you realize, oh, someone's loved one died there. And I wanted these women to have that. But what I didn't expect is that people in those communities and people who were driving around would be Googling red wooden crosses on the side of the interstate, and they'd be coming back to these social media posts. I didn't expect that.
There were now 6 red crosses along the interstates of America's Bible Belt, one for each woman Shane now believed were victims of an unknown serial killer. He knew the names of 2 of them, Lisa Nichols in Arkansas and Depsy Pilgrim in Kentucky, but 4 women still remained completely unidentified.
The first cross I put in is our next Jane Doe. She's found just north of Knoxville, Tennessee, right over the Kentucky state border into Tennessee. She's known as the Campbell County Jane Doe. She's found on January 1st, 1985. Her body is found. She's wrapped in a blanket. Her feet and her hands are tied together, and there is tape completely around her as well. On the blanket, the original detective in Tennessee told me that he discovered that there was semen on it. And he knew that back then, and that he took the precautions that he needed to preserve it. So I knew in that moment, if I can just get the TBI to test this DNA, we'll have the killer. But I also have to remember, the TBI, they don't necessarily like hearing from me.
Not long after this, Shane noticed a woman named Liza Plummer tagged in one of the comments regarding the Campbell County Jane Doe by someone who believed it might be her sister. So you can probably guess what Shane did next. He reached out to Liza.
So we have a long conversation back and forth. I ask her about her sister. She gives me some photos of her from back then and explains she's not heard from her, her family hasn't heard from her, and that they reported her missing back then, but no one's ever heard from her. Later on, I go meet her in person in Indianapolis, and she tells me the story about Tina Farmer, her sister. Tina, at a very young age, I believe she was around 16, came under the influence of a pimp at a local truck stop. She was being trafficked by him, and she was being drugged by him. And Liza told me that her and her dad were trying to get her out from his influence, but they couldn't get to her. And before they knew it, she disappeared. When she goes missing, the pimp tells the family members that she was with a trucker and he left with her heading south.
72 hours after Tina was last seen leaving with a trucker was when the body of the Campbell County Doe was discovered, more than 300 miles south of Indianapolis. The 72-hour time period also fit perfectly within the estimated time of death upon her discovery. Although Tina Farmer's family had reported her missing to police, Shane learned the detectives hadn't taken it seriously, and the family's missing persons report was never officially filed.
I immediately tell Liza that we need to contact the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. They're the ones in charge of her sister's case, and they would be the ones that confirms her identity. I sent an email to them and gave them all of her contact information and all the information from my interviewing her, and laid out in plain form why I believe this was her, and explained why her missing persons case had never been filed. I never heard back, but then I hear back from Liza that they showed up at her house about a week later, and then they went and did dental records from Tina. They were able to match them, so they were able to positively identify her as Tina Farmer.
Although Shane had been the one to alert the TBI about Tina Farmer's identity, they never contacted him to let him know that a positive ID had been made. Despite getting the cold shoulder from the TBI, Shane wasn't dismayed and continued to work the case. One thing Shane did to help identify these women was to make sure they were all entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, or NamUs for short. That way all the Jane Does would have their DNA on file in a massive government-run database. It was this important step that led to discovering the identity of the victim of the next Red Cross along the highway in Greene County, Tennessee.
And this is the county that is nearest to Alex Campbell and his students. Her body was found on April 14th, 1985, but she was already in an advanced stage of decomposition, and they believe that she was killed 3 to 6 weeks prior. When I talked to the original detective, he said that she had cigarette burns on her body, and she did have blunt force trauma. And with her stage of decomposition, he couldn't say for certain if she was strangled, but he couldn't rule that out. She's identified next, and this weird scenario plays out. So her name is Elizabeth Lamont, and she's from New Hampshire. She was reported missing, and her brother submitted DNA because they thought that this Jane Doe that was up in the New England area could be Elizabeth Lamont. When they went to compare her DNA, they discovered that that wasn't her, but at that point in time, they linked it back to our Jane Doe.
The word was getting out. The DNA was in the database, and one by one, the Jane Does were having their identities returned to them. But there were still 2 unidentified victims, 2 women still only known as Jane Doe.
Now I'm about to tell you the very little information I have on the 2 unidentified people. One of the unidentified victims is the Wetzel County Jane Doe. She was found in Wetzel County, West Virginia. She was found on February 13th, 1983. which would make her the very first victim that was possibly linked to the serial killer. She was also unique in the fact that she would also be the oldest victim of his. They believe that she was between the age of 35 to 45. I was able to track down the original detective back then, and he told me that the day that she was found, she wasn't found very far from the police station, which was very interesting to me, I thought. But he said that she was found without clothing by two older people who thought that she was a mannequin. Even today, when you speak to the West Virginia state troopers, they are a little hesitant on believing that this woman could be related because of her age. I think that's all that I know about her, unfortunately. The other unidentified person, I know much less. She's from Cheatham County, Tennessee. She is still a Jane Doe. She was found on March 31st, 1985. She was skeletonized, and the town is Pleasant View, Tennessee. She was found right along I-24, and authorities believed that she had been killed about 3 to 5 months prior to her being found. But they could tell that she had red hair. Of course, because of her being a skeleton, it was impossible for them to tell how she was killed.
Although West Virginia authorities are skeptical that Wetzel County Jane Doe may have been one of the Redhead murder's victims, there was something in the serial killer profile that Alex's high school class created that could suggest otherwise. Based on the geographical data from the victims' locations, the students concluded that if the Wetzel County Jane Doe wasn't one of his victims, the serial killer was probably operating out of Nashville, in the western half of Tennessee. If they did include Wetzel County, which they were inclined to do, this suggests the killer was based out of the Knoxville area, in the eastern half of the state. It wouldn't be long before they discovered just how right they'd been about everything.
The FBI learned about what we were doing and the kids working with this retired FBI profiler, and the FBI, the Behavioral Science Department, invited the kids to come to Knoxville to show them this profile that we've created. So the kids and Alex, we all go to Knoxville. The director of the profiling department is there and all the agents. They got to present all the information and why they came up with it and their theories and all this information. And then they got to take questions. And the FBI profilers give feedback. And that's when I really realized, like, we're onto something. Like, we may actually get to this guy.
What had started out as an attempt to discover the identity of one Jane Doe was now becoming a bona fide hunt for a serial killer. Working off the students' profiles, Shane locked into a very important detail, one that would have him down another rabbit hole.
Suddenly, in 1985, these murders stopped. What caused him to stop? Did he get too old where he could no longer physically, manually strangle someone? Was he no longer traveling alone? Did he die? I also was thinking, did anyone survive their attack? With that in mind, I started looking for people who may have survived their attack. Using the FBI profile that the kids and I created, I knew that this guy likely was working out of the Knoxville area, the center of all these crimes. And so happens to be, in Knoxville, this man named Jerry Johns went to prison for attempted murder of a woman named Linda Shack.
In March 1985, a truck driver named Jerry Johns and his brother met two dancers at a strip club in Knoxville called Catch One. After joining the brothers back in their hotel rooms, Jerry drove one of the women back, and that's when a sinister side of him emerged. Instead of driving her back to the club, he pulled over in a wooded section along I-40 where he attempted to murder her. She later told police Jerry had become absolutely enraged when he discovered she dyed her hair, that she wasn't a real redhead, apparently something deeply important to him. Using the woman's own skirt, Jerry strangled her until she passed out. Believing she was dead, he left her in the woods, but miraculously, she survived. Soon after, she was able to identify Jerry Johns as her attacker, and he was arrested. He would later be convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 73 years in prison.
So I end up going to Nashville to get access to the archives for the court case. And in it, I see notes, handwritten notes from interviews that detectives are having with him. And at this point in time, I'm thinking, okay, this woman, he didn't pick her up from a truck stop, but he is a trucker. He fits our profile to a T. To a T. He's a trucker. He owns a trucking company, a small trucking company. He's in the Knoxville area. This woman is a redhead, exotic dancer. So I'm thinking, this is close. So I'm looking through the handwritten notes, and they interview him, and they were trying to ask him, like, why he went after her specifically. And he started talking about how these women who sell sex are the bottom of the barrel people. They're worthless. They deserve to die. She deserved it. And I was like, okay, this is exactly the type of language I would suspect this person to use. Unfortunately, Jerry Johns died in 2015 in prison, so I couldn't go interview him, but I found the address for his widow. She invites me in, and we have a very long conversation. And after my conversation with her, I was 100% sure this is our man. This is him.
There is nothing in the world that could have prepared Shane for the story he was about to hear from Jerry John's widow. Buckle up, because now you're about to hear it too.
So what she tells me is that her and Jerry Johns have been neighbors for all her life, that they grew up there on that same street. Her parents were next door neighbors to his parents. And when she was around 12 years old, he was around 20 years old. And he started hiding in their attic because he went AWOL from the military. And then when he did that, he started having a sexual relationship with her. Again, she was 12 years old and he was around 20. They fell in love with each other, as she says, and she got pregnant at 12 years old. So they went to her dad and explained that she was pregnant by him. And that's when her dad explained to her that they are actually half siblings. And Jerry Johns, he always had a rocky relationship with his mom because she was a sex worker. So he falls in love with this 12-year-old and they are in love with each other. She's pregnant and he already has hurt feelings for his mom because of her being a sex worker. And then now he learns that she also had been cheating on his dad with their neighbor, and the love of his life is also his half-sister.
In order to legally get married, they moved to Texas, where his mother and the man he thought was his father lived. Jerry had spent some time in prison for having gone AWOL, and to make matters worse, their child passed away at a very young age from complications the doctors believed were most likely due to incest.
So I looked and I realized that around the same time that they moved to Texas, that's when he starts up his little trucking company. We knew from creating the profile that at some point in time, when the killing started, he had to have suddenly been introduced the ability to kill people. So he starts up this trucking company, just a small little truck. He's doing it himself. Then his brother jumps on with a new truck. He starts doing all this traveling. She explains that that's kind of when his personality kind of switched. That's when he started becoming mean. And I asked her if she ever went with him to these different truck stops. And she said, yes, there was one instance where she did go with him. And he explained to her that there are these women who work at these truck stops. He called them lot lizards. And he said that they are worthless. They are horrible people. And they're just bothersome, in your way all the time. She recognized immediately that he had a hatred towards these type of people. And she also recognized that they also reminded him of his mom. And that's also why she thought that he hated that type of person.
Jerry's victims reminded him of his mother, but it wasn't just because of their occupation. They had something else in common with her as well. She had red hair, as did both Jerry and his half-sister who he'd married.
Then that's when I really recognized, like, okay, this really could be him. Now, I do have a belief that I think his brother was helping him. Him and his brother, from talking to the widow, him and his brother were very, very close, and they often were together in the truck. So I have a feeling that his brother was involved as well, but there would be no way, unless DNA ever showed up, for anyone to prove that. His brother is deceased as well. The widow gave me pictures of Jerry's truck, and it matched the description that Bruce gave in Barberville, Kentucky, the red flat-nosed truck SB was seen getting into. What was interesting, though, is the man that Bruce describes, though, didn't match the description of this guy. Jerry Johns was a redhead, but his brother, it matched the description of his brother to a T.
We've got a very different kind of sponsor for this episode, The Jordan Harbinger Show, which is a podcast you really and disturbing at the same time. Another episode tells the story of a cinematographer. For some episode recommendations, or
This is like, man, that's pretty early tomorrow, but he got it approved and he got a local press person to go with him. He's like, I'm going to show up to this press conference.
Shane and Alex quickly realized that TBI didn't want them to know about the press conference in advance, and certainly didn't want either of them showing up.
So Alex goes and he shows up to this press conference with a press badge.
Good afternoon. I'm Jared Epler, the elected district attorney for Tennessee's 8th Judicial District, of which Campbell County is a part of.
And Liza, Tina's sister, and I both join via Facebook Live. We're watching the event as it's being streamed by one of the media people there. My blood boils thinking about this. So the TBI stands up and you can hear them patting themselves on the back.
I'd like to recognize Special Agent Brandon Elkins and Intelligence Analyst Amy Emberton, who worked on this case over the years.
We've been working so hard on this case, and we are proud to say that through all of our hard work, we've been able to convene a grand jury, and we've presented the DNA of a Jerry Johns, and we've compared it to the DNA of semen found on Tina Farmer, and we presented it to the grand jury. And the grand jury came back and said if Jerry Johns was alive, they would motion to charge him. So that's as far as you can get with someone who's deceased. And my jaw's dropping because I realize this is him. This entire time, the sister to the victim that they're talking about, they just identified the killer. She's learning about it over Facebook, watching a video they did not tell her about.
That profile matched that of Jerry Jones, who was first identified as a possible suspect in this investigation in the mid-'80s.
So she is blowing up that chat, telling them a what for and how they are not appropriate, that is not very nice of them, and how hurtful it is to learn about that, watching it, and how hurtful and how unkind it was.
On one hand, it was a remarkable moment for Shane. The TBI was officially confirming he'd correctly identified Tina Farmer's murderer. He'd put in the shoe leather investigation work that no one else was willing to do, and he'd been right. On the other hand, the inappropriateness of the press conference itself was impossible to ignore. And if having an understandably angry family member commenting on the live stream wasn't bad enough for the TBI, they were in for quite a surprise when they began taking questions from the members of the press.
The first question was,
what was her family's reaction to this news that you guys presented us today?
And the TBI was like,
I think they were happy to have some sort of conclusion.
and the entire time, Liza is just going off, lies, lies, lies. They've not contacted me at all. I'm her sister. I have her ashes right here, and they've not told me a thing. And then they ask for another question. The next voice I hear is a very familiar East Tennessee accent of Alex Campbell. And Alex says, did you specifically contact Liza Plummer, her sister? And you just see the face on his face just go, oh crap. And he goes, well, we're not giving specifics on who we're talking to. We're just going to talk about the hard work that we've been doing. The next thing Alex asks is he says, how long have you been working on this case? And the next guy goes, well, this guy right here has been working on this case for about 10 years. He's been really working hard on it. He asked a question about how has the podcaster and high school team helped the case? And they quickly were like, we're not taking questions anymore. Everyone have a good day. And they left. And by the time Alex gets back to school, Alex had a message from a retired TBI agent that was told by the director of the TBI that we need to stop sticking our nose into this case and stop making them look bad. So I don't have to worry about a serial killer here anymore. But the TBI have a serious problem with some high school students and a podcaster for some reason. And why they're lying to people about them telling a sister of a victim, I have no idea.
Because of Shane and the students' efforts, 3 out of the 5 Redhead murders Jane Doe's have now been identified. And not only that, Tina Farmer's murderer had been identified. But so far, she's the only one Jerry Johns has been officially linked to.
Jerry Johns has only been linked officially by the grand jury to one of the victims. Now, what's also important, the TBI does not address whatsoever, but Tina Farmer was pregnant when she was murdered. And in Tennessee, you can charge someone for murder if they murder someone who's pregnant, but they didn't get Jerry Johns for that either. They just went after him for the one. He's already gotten away with this for so long. I would have brought up the child thing too, in front of the grand jury as well. Get him for both, because there's 2 lives that were lost there because of his actions. In this entire scenario, there are 2 children here that were forgotten. Lisa Nichols' child and Tina Farmer's child.
Although many of these victims have been forgotten by law enforcement, missing case files and evidence boxes left in the homes of retired detectives, Shane realized there was one group who'd never forgotten these women, their families.
All 3 victims that were identified had something in common. Their family members reported them missing, but each of them were not actually taken seriously. They were not actually reported in the way that they should have been reported. So the family members did what they were supposed to do, but detectives didn't do their part of the deal. And so I think for these 2 women, that may be the case as well, that their family members have been looking for them, but they may be under the false impression that their loved ones are actively being worked as missing people. So I think an important message that I would have to everyone that would be listening is if you have a loved one that's been missing recently or a long time, make sure that they are actively being worked and that they are in every database. Put that pressure on. If you've not heard back for a while, contact them. Because all the 3 ones that I've been able to identify, those family members have thought for years that those detectives were actively working the cases, and that wasn't what was happening.
Today, the work continues on the case because it's not over. There are still at least 2 unidentified women who were victims of this serial killer.
If someone's listening, or if I could reach the right type of people, and if they have the feeling that their loved one back then could have been in a scenario that they could find themselves at truck stops, as sex workers, which no one wants to ever think that their loved one could be. If you think that your loved one could have fallen into that situation and they were a redheaded woman, this very well could be your loved one. I think there were 2 moments when I felt personally involved One of them was when I learned about what the detective was saying about Lisa Nichols. He's taking out our trash, guys. Like, we don't have to care about this. And that really upset me, because here was this person talking about a human being like that, and then learning about what the detective told me about throwaway people. And then that put me back. This guy was specifically going after this type of person because he knew no one was going to care about them. So I think for society to treat people like that back then and now, I really hope that we're in a different place. I think that's why I feel a very strong connection to this entire case and these women, and why it was important for me to put those crosses up and return their humanity to them, and remind the communities that this wasn't a sex worker that died here. This was a person, and that person mattered. And we should all care that someone killed them. And we should go out and find out who did it, and find out who their name is, and return them to their families.
The DNA.
Yes. It's pretty powerful, isn't it? Hi, Princess Mariposa. How are you? Thanks for coming in. Yes, you guys, the Rose Bly. I know, well, we don't know where they said she was going to a bar that night, the night she disappeared. But if this guy was a trucker, I don't know. It's just the fact that Rose has been missing for 11 years. She had red hair. Like, it's crazy to me. Wow, I caught it. It just got my brain going on so many different levels. Last night I was wide awake and thought, initially it was about the TBI being disgusting and the way they wouldn't cooperate or get involved, but then at the end of the day had to take full recognition for it. But then when I was listening to different bits back again, I thought about Rose and I was like, oh dear Lord, could Rose Bly went missing 2009 and she was 21. So 2009. My brain isn't fast enough today. 2009. So she was born in 1988. This guy, yeah, she would have been too young. Because this guy would have been incarcerated in 2009. Oh, Libby, hello. Thank you for the thumbs up. Good to see you. You think a trucker got her? It's just, if she was snatched from a truck stop, you wouldn't think they would have moved her car, would you? But then it was found near the truck yard, wasn't it? Crazy. But yeah, that just got my bristles up. The whole story just blew my mind. I can't. How rude are they? The TBI, I mean. Like, That's just wrong. I like to think good things about law enforcement. I know there's corruption on every level, but to hear it, and I really hope this guy gets back to me. I really want to talk to him. I'm just checking my email while we're still on here. No, maybe he's like me. He only checks his email every couple of days. I have been getting a bit better though. No, he hasn't answered me yet. But I'll show you guys his the actual. So how do I do? I'll just find Shane Mortis's podcast to show you guys. Give him a. He's got the investigative. I'll just share the screen. He seems like a nice young guy. And with the quality of his podcast, I was surprised as well that he's only got 2,000 subscribers. So to get to the redheaded murderers, go to, so this is his, it's called True Crime Bow Play Podcast. And if you then click on his playlists, he has a whole one here on the redheaded murders.
The episode you.
And I think there is 9 episodes where he goes into heaps more depth. I haven't got through all of them yet. As you can see, I've only got partway through the 2nd episode. But the other one that we just listened to is just like an overview of the whole story. That's why I played it and not all of Shane's episodes. But I'm going to listen to them tonight. And yeah, it's just interesting. So give him a sub up, guys, and I will put the link in the chat. But I thought it was, why won't it let me copy? Copy. I thought it was interesting to play the overview. So if you wanted to go over and listen to all his episodes. But yeah, look at his views. Like, even his views. It's like, dude, we need to do something about this because he seems really, really good. So this video, his first episode in this series, has been up since May the 5th, 2020, and he's only got 351 views. And most of them are like that. Like part 2, 154 views. And you can see and hear, like he does his work. He's not just like me and comes on here and just chats. This guy is actively investigating and doing awesome things. He needs more views from the building so they can sleep. Yeah, they do that here too, Country Sunset. And welcome. What's his name? His name's Shane Mortis, Country Sunset. I only come across him last night through the other podcast we were listening to. And instantly I was like, this fella is very thorough. He said he hung a huge bra on his mirror at night, keep them ladies of the night away. Wow. But what an attitude from law enforcement. That it just didn't matter. That was in another case too. I think it was the Killing Fields, where it's been in a couple of cases where they were night workers and law enforcement just had that attitude, and that infuriates me. Have you got a case, Crystal? I've never ever been in one. Ever. Yeah, we need to get into them, Crystal. Really, Oklahoma? Yeah, it was. The Killing Fields was, oh my God, next level. Absolutely. Now, another little story I want to talk about before I have to go and get Layla is, what am I doing here? I'm sharing this one. Yeah. I'll give you a quick overview. So this little girl, we'll just play this and then we'll talk about it.
A toddler found abandoned a week ago in Mexico is now on her way to Australia. Police are still searching for the 2-year-old's parents, and in Cancun, her family spoke exclusively to 9 News.
Oblivious to the drama surrounding her, 2-year-old Adeline is leaving Mexico for Australia 1 week after she was found by strangers abandoned outside a church. Her mum and dad are still missing.
We just want to get her home, and then it's breaking my heart to go without Tahnee. I don't know, but there's nothing I can do about that. So at this moment,
and we're leaving knowing that Tahnee's getting searched for in a very professional way. You know, they're doing an excellent job.
With the help of the Australian consulate, Adeline was granted an emergency passport and will travel with Uncle Ben and Gran to Queensland.
happy, fast. I can't catch her. She's been great. She's really taken to Ben. Say hola, hola. Oh, you're going to hang on to it. You talk.
Adeline's mother, Tahnee Shanks, hasn't been seen in a week. She's from Queensland but lives in Mexico. Her ex-partner, Jorge Astudillo, has also vanished. The pair last seen in Cancun, where Adeline was found wandering alone on church steps last Monday night.
What did police say to you about the investigation?
All I want to say is they have been incredible. We are just so blown out with what's going down. We can't say anything, of course.
Once they're home, there's little that Ben and Leanne can do except wait, phone in hand, for an update on the search. They've met with the officers in charge of the investigation and say they're confident they're in good hands.
What's next for Addie?
Well, we haven't really gone that far yet, but when we get home, we'll sort all that out, and she's going to be well looked after.
In Cancun, Mexico, Michael Genovese. 9 News.
Okay, so little Adeline was abandoned out the front of the church. 2 days later, they found her parents' burnt out ute. I think it was like 30 kilometers from Cancun. And yeah, the vehicle had been burnt out, but there was no sign of mum or the boyfriend. But she had been sending text messages to family and very close friends in Australia saying, I'm just getting this other web page up. And since the family have got little Adeline back home, they've been going through news footage and stuff. I'm just going to share this. And they've picked up something. So the night that she was found, there was photos taken and news footage and all that sort of stuff. And the family have spotted this bit of blood on the little girl's hand. Can you see that on her little finger? I thought that was a great pickup, but the authorities didn't. Oh, damn, go back. I don't know what I did. I clicked on an ad. Sorry. Yeah, the family picked that up. So the family, this news article is talking about how the family spotted the blood, what appears to be blood, on Adeline's little finger there that's got the red circle around it. So they've got back in contact with law enforcement and wanted to know where the baby's clothes are that she had on that night so they could get them DNA tested and everything else. But law enforcement don't know. There's been no response about her clothes. So there's two scenarios that the Mexican authorities feel. The first one is that because he had links to some sort of mafia, money, drugs, whatever, that somebody has gotten rid of both of them, or that he has harmed Tahnee and burnt the ute out himself to make it look like it was a mafia thing, and then he has abandoned his daughter at the church himself. So I'm really, really hoping that they get answers. Yes, in these text messages, these are the text messages she was sending home. And she clearly saying that she's locked herself in Addie's room, avoiding conflict. He is yelling, "Get out of my house." But Addie was awake, so I put her to bed and stayed. I can't be a part of it anymore. I've asked my dad for more money to be able to pay rent and live until I come home, because I just can't be under his control anymore. he uses it against me and is very verbally abusive. I don't want to wait until it gets physical. Like, guys, I know this is going to sound weird, but I don't know what that's meant to say, but this part here, George Louis Agua Astudillo, just in case anything happens to me, they can go after him. So it's like, how many times do we see this over and over? That women just they know, they have a gut feeling. If anything happens, this is what's going to happen, This is who to look at. They've got that sixth sense. People have to start acting on their sixth sense. I don't think it's mafia related, because they checked out of, so there's a 60-minute story, an Australian 60-minute story. I shared it on my community tab. Not on the community. I shared it the other day. And it's a 26-minute detailed, in-depth story on it. And if I play it, they will copyright strike me. They did last time. When I played the one about Cleo Smith, they were straight onto me. So I don't want to upset them and play the story. Even if I stop it every couple of minutes, they still strike. His criminal past and violent gang connections has led to their demise. You think so, Gymnastics? I honestly think it was him that dropped her there. But they ended in the story, Gymnastics, because I know you said you watched it. I think the man that originally had the little girl and who spoke to the guy that left her there, he couldn't positively say 100% that was who left her there. But he said he looks similar. So, you're fine, Country Sunset. Thanks for coming in and spending some time with us. Yes. How true is that, Cold Case? To say they want to be alone and should leave these abusers. It's weird, though, how case after case you see where they've sent subtle messages out. If anything happens, look at this person. The man that was seen with Addie outside the church wasn't the father. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought, Twiggy, because that guy said he looks similar but not the same. It's just... So I messaged Dan Shanks, that's Tahnee's brother. He has he'd even hired a bodyguard, the boyfriend. Was involved in linked to Mexico's notorious drug cartels. But why would they take? You would think they would have found bodies by now or something. So this is them leaving the Cancun hotel. They went there and they only stayed one night, and they left the next morning. On the 60-minute story, it shows them driving back towards the town where they lived, Merida. Merida. So they left Cancun. They were heading back to Merida. And for some reason, I think they're about 30 kilometers away. They turned around because they've got the GPS tracking of where they went. And they turned around and went back and went up a side road 20 kilometers away from Cancun. And that's where the vehicle was found, burnt out. So, you know, it's weird. Very weird. Like, they look so happy. Isn't she a cute little thing? So I hope people are sharing it and talking about it. But look, that's Uncle Ben and her nan, Tahnee's mum, and that's little Adeline. So they live up in Queensland, in the Whitsundays area. Could you imagine flying to another country to pick up your granddaughter that you've never met in person, only FaceTimed with, and having to leave without your child, and you have no clue? I thought he had ID, the father, and said no, he didn't think it was him. Yeah, he did, Twiggy, that's what I'm saying. He said it didn't look like him, but a little bit, something like that. He certainly was a violent piece of work. She would have been so isolated and terrified, and I know. You can't imagine, can you? And I don't know whether she met him in Queensland and then went back to Mexico, or she was holidaying. I don't know the backstory. But I'm going to see if, so the photos on there are with Ben that went with his mum to go and pick up little Adeline. But Dan has kicked off all the Facebook support groups and stuff like that. So I think I might email Dan tonight and see if he'll come on and give us some more information that's more accurate than just reading off the internet. Is the plan? No, it's heartbreaking for grandmother and her family. That would have been so hard to leave without your daughter. I know. I can't even imagine gymnastics. Now, one more thing before I go, I have to show you guys. I'll leave that there for a second while I... Hang on. I got a little bit show and tell. I have been really... I did a workshop, guys, in... you know the fabric place I go to, which I've got to go tomorrow to pick up quilts. I've been super, super busy. Picking up and doing the customer quilts for them. In 1 week I had 7 or 8. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that one. Now we're going to share another one. Yeah, I think it would be great to have, to be able to speak to her family directly. Can you guys see that? Please take this in the nicest way possible, but I'm about to nod off. I'm so happy to see you all. It's almost 6 a.m. Oh my God, wee Frosty, you go and get some sleep. Thank you for being in here with us, though. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know. It's getting late for all you guys. I'm so sorry. Do you recognize it, gymnastics? Show and tell time. I started another one of that one. The Bed of Roses quilt. Gymnastics will recognize this fabric. I'm thinking about this border. What do you guys think? Mind the cap sitting on the edge of it. Nighty night, wee Frosty. Can I Facebook you in a bit? Yep, you sure can, Jackie Jude. Absolutely. Do you love it? It's lovely. Yes, so the other photo, this one, is the second quilt I've started. But our beautiful gymnastics had that fabric sent to me. She is amazing. And I just love, 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 love it. I did only send 2 photos to myself. Hang on, I'll send some more photos. Gosh. Hang on. I'm just attaching more photos. I must only let you send so many at a time. I've never had that problem before. Really? Ah, so this is one that I did at the workshop. So you think the border's good, gymnastics? You must be on the West Coast. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but see how the little centers are empty? So you place this over your picture. There's the fabric. Look at it. It's called Exquisite. And it's a Riley Blake fabric, and it is just divine, like absolutely scrumptious. And soon as I seen it, I thought, oh my God, we have to make gymnastics one with this fabric. So I've got that far. Isn't it gorgeous though? Like, it actually looks a bit darker in that photo than it is in real life. But this quilt only took, I think, 8 weeks. And I've done this one in this much, I've got done in 2 weeks. I'll show you the photo of what it's going to look like. We'll go to Instagram. I've got to go and pick quilts up tomorrow, and you should see if we go MSG, I can show you guys this. What? What do you mean you can't? It's been silly, guys. Where did MSG go? I don't know what's happened. Okay, so it's not going to let me. Now I've got to share again. I've got to share a different tab because it opened in a different tab. Okay, where was I? So this is her page. How do I get out of that? Shut up, Ronald. He just come in to have a shower, guys. I'm trying to show you the quilts that we did. See how this little pussycat is in the middle? That's what it'll look like on my quilt. I'm trying to find the original photos of this quilt that I've just started to show you. You all. But it's been a shit. So this designer's name is Margaret Sampson George, and she is amazing. I've started this one here. It's called Ruby Rose Hips. I don't know if I've showed you guys that one before or not. No. But basically the photo that's in her, see this one up here? This one, which is her profile pic. That's the quilt that I started at the workshop the other day. And instead of doing that whirligig in the middle, I'm doing my version. Please don't do it, Sooty. she's going to try and, no, don't. If it's not birds annoying me, it's cats. But she is amazing. So this is the way I was going to do it. And I bought that exact fabric to put in the middle. And then I got home and I didn't love it anymore. So I changed it. And I do that all the time when I'm not feeling it. But it was a great weekend. You know, why is it doing that? And hubby's like, is that all you did all weekend? And I'm like, yeah, dude, that's all I did all weekend. I just don't understand why it's not bringing. Yeah, that'd be fabulous. Thanks. Do you hear what he called me? That's not nice. Now, tomorrow when I go to pick up quilts, check this out. How beautiful. So it's the new Tilda range. Shit, I better be careful. And look at them. They're big peacocks. And then there's vases. This is all the one range. So I'm going to pick that up tomorrow. And, sorry, I wasn't in chat. I've just been carried away with showing you guys stuff. Isn't it gorgeous? If you like bright colors. Look at that one. Hang on. I think she put better photos up. We'll go stalk her page. Stop it, Sooty. Okay, this is what I'm really excited about. Miss Brandy, I don't know if you're still here or not. My petal. But see this one? I've already started. I've got all of those fabrics and I've already started cutting it out for you. How divine is it? Mr. Gumby. Is Mr. Gumby here? I don't know what's going on. Oh, hi, Mr. Gumby. Welcome. How are you? Can't wait to see your version. Glad you got to enjoy a weekend, a workshop, and eye up all the fabric, the new Tilda range. It is amazing. Gymnastic, because I'm so in love with it. Yeah, that's awesome of Mr. Gumby to come in. Yeah, he probably did. He should have been here like 2 hours ago. It's all the girly stuff now. Well, not that it has to be girly stuff, but you know. So that is one of the ones the girls did on the weekend. Some more show and tell. I felt really, really bad though, because it was Layla's 13th. That's the mess we made at the shop. It was Layla's 13th. So the workshop went to Saturday and the Sunday. And it was Layla's birthday on the Sunday. And I've got all these too. I got them when I was over there for the workshop. And I felt horrible that I'm not with Layla for her birthday. So the V8 supercars were on in Winton, which is 3-hour drive from home. So hubby took Layla to the car races for the day. And then I didn't feel bad about not being with her for her birthday. Sharon, scroll up. Okay, I'm trying Bizzle. I'm trying. I know it's super late, you guys. Whoa, Cold Case Crystal, another one, 1969. What? I'll put the link in Discord. I can send you the link. Did you see Crystal's Cry? No, I didn't, Fizzle. Her name's Amy. I heard something real quick I clicked on. Do you think Crystal would mind if we have a look? I love Crystal's Crime Time. As soon as I come live, there's never a time I can pick lately. As soon as I think I'm going to go, hang on. What we're going to do here, instead of me sharing a whole new tab all over again, really. Crystal Crime Time. Oh, do you think she'll mind, Fizzle, if I play it? It's made for us. Okay. Oh. Yeah, I don't think she'd be super mad. I'll send her an email after it. Jodie Sue Brown's sister finds out some of the Wells case. Wow. Thanks for that, Fizzle. I hadn't seen it yet. You guys, I've been saying this for months and months and months. Since the marathon, when she started emailing me. And it was just before, like a couple of days before she turned on Scott and Penny, and she wanted to know if she could come hang out in our chat because it was a little channel and she didn't want drama and she was scared for her life and da-di-da-di-da. And instantly I thought, there's something not right here. Like, she's not okay in the head. Yeah, absolutely, Fizzle. Like, everything that was done for her because she's screeching at the top of her. Oh, well, I don't think she could screech. If she wanted to, she wouldn't have the energy. You know, she's carrying on about her life and her kids' lives are in danger. And I'm like, dude, that was my initial thing and still is to this minute. If your and your children's lives are in so much danger, why are you on social media, period, for whatever reason? Just does not make any logical sense to me. I don't understand it. Oh, you're kidding me. Jenny's here. Oh, dear Lord. Hi, Jenny. Oh, my God, I'm so excited. Gavel Geeks is here, guys. Gavel Geeks and Fizzle are both here. And why I feel she is scared shitless of Jenny, because Jenny's got that database. Yeah. And Jodie Sue cannot handle the fact that Jenny has this photographic memory for data, not only on a hard drive, but in her brain. And she can call Jodie Sue Brown's shit out every single time. And Jodie Sue hates it. She doesn't. I don't think she personally hates Jenny on any level. She just can't stand the fact that Jenny knows. We all know Jodie. When will she realise? I can't understand anything she says. Me either, Twiggy. I've tried slow. I've tried fast. I've put it. Look, I've even gone to the extreme of putting in 2 earbuds at exactly the same time. It does nothing. I still cannot understand her. Gymnastics, I don't think so. She's been like this for years, according to those who know her. As in her storytelling and paranoia, Fizzle. Yes, thank you, Miss Justice. Please drop Gavel Geeks as well. That would be awesome. Any creators that come in. So she's been on for 21 hours today so far. I tell you what, though, the other day, I can't remember whose. It was the CSI Live. Remember, it went for, I don't know, nearly 9 hours. So I had that going on my phone while I was listening, and then they were talking about what Jodie Sue was doing over on her channel. And for the first time ever, I put it on the TV, and she scared the living shit out of me at 75 inches tall. But I still couldn't understand her, even on the big screen. She's about to blow a gasket tonight. I'm listening to her too. Oh, really? We have to concentrate. She wasn't happy during that CSI one, though. She was really blowing up. And she had a lot to say about Scott yesterday too. I was hearing bits and pieces that people were talking about when I was in a live. I can't remember whose it was. It has nothing to speed of speech. It's mumbo jumbo. Yeah, but it's not even an accent. Like, it's like she doesn't have the energy to actually move her mouth properly. And all the words just mumble over each other. Purposeful confusion, yes. Really, cold case Crystal. Oh, she's on about Scott again tonight. I'll have to go and have a look. No, she's just... I love the way Benny calls her out for smoking in the trailer with her kids sitting there, and you know, people are so quick to throw stones at Benny because he's in the garage, but at least he's got the decency to not do it inside around his family, and he's more respectful of the people he lives with. She just is the most selfish, brazen. Oh, I can't even. That has got to be awful. May Hazel says, Gavel Geeks, I am sorry that you have to listen to her all the time for research. Thank you for sacrificing your ears and sanity for summer. Yes, we all appreciate you, Jenny. I wish I could, but I get nothing out of it. Hi there.
Pops on the phone.
Oh, okay. Okay. It was a crazy life, Sharon. The things she said were so paranoid. Yeah, like she's always been paranoid. And Jenny, maybe you can clarify this for me because I have no clue. But a couple of months ago, I can remember coming across one of her lives where she was sitting in the vehicle and she just left a doctor's office. And I swear on my life, she said that like she was on the verge of tears and looking around the way she does and everything. And she said that the doctor told her there's nothing else they can do for her now. It's all palliative care now, and they recommended a hospice. Does anyone else remember that? She spoke about that, and she said, no way, I'm not going to no hospice. I'm sorry, but anybody who is that ill does not sit at their kitchen table for 9 hours straight smoking one after another. I just couldn't remember if I drank it or... I'm so glad someone else perceived it that way, because I thought either my ears were tricking me and I didn't really hear it. Oh my God, Cable Geeks heard it too. Now look, I'm a survivor of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I've spoken about it heaps of times. I had treatment for 2 years, ended up having a stem cell transplant. I've been in remission for 16 years. I still have a really shitty immune system, but initially, before, when I was first diagnosed, they said I might have 2 years if treatments didn't work. Like they were blunt, they were straight up. At no time during any of my treatment was I ever told that I should be thinking about a hospice. And I was legit sick. Like, I just don't get it.
Please put some weight on.
She has. So I'm glad I wasn't the only one that heard that. And she never ever looks sick to me. You remember it too, Cold Case? Why would she get in the car and say that? Like, honestly. Hi, Gamer Guy. How are you? Look, I don't know whether it's because of what I've been through with the lymphoma and how grateful and lucky and blessed I am that I've got to see my kids get married and be here for the granddaughters and watch all my grandkids grow and be with hubby, and my whole life I'm grateful for. I don't know, it's like double whammy, you know. You go through the bullshit we all did with Chase and him falling back to the cancer story. And why do people think it's okay to keep playing this card all the time for sympathy? You know, it just does my head in. It's one thing that really, really, really cuts to the core with me. Why do they fall back to this? The sympathy card, poor little me. They would know it if they really had these diagnoses. There is no way you would be in a frame of mind that you want to be on YouTube talking shit about anything. Like, keep it real, people. Well, who knows why she says half the crazies that she does. She's very unwell mentally, I'm guessing. Yeah, I know gymnastics, it's just drives me crazy. She just likes to tell people about it when none of her health information has been solicited. She likes to use it for sure. So my mum had the thyroid cancer years ago, and she didn't have to have it surgically cut out. They did the radiation thing, and I know there was on CSI Live the other day, and they were talking about the radiation and stuff. I have no clue to what depth Jody Sue had the radiation pills, but I know with my own mother that went through it, she had to go to Sydney, and I think she was only in hospital overnight, but for the next week she couldn't go around any children or babies, and had to have a separate bathroom for 5 nights, I think. And that was a long time ago. But I think she only had like two actual pills. No, like even if... Oh, really, Fizzle? She did fake it as well. What is it with... Maybe that's where Chase decided... Well, Chase had done it before too, apparently. He told his co-workers that his wife had breast cancer. I just don't know. It's obviously for sympathy and attention, but when you've really been through it, you just get super triggered by people faking it. Yes, isn't that crazy? Now she might just be in trouble health-wise, but with her untruths, who would know? I don't know. I just don't believe it. Like, I know a lot of people... I don't understand how so many people absolutely believe so much of what she says, though. Have you seen them all in there? It's like she's a god. And they're so defensive. If anyone asks a question, like any of us that would go in there and just ask a normal, healthy question without being snarky or sarcastic, you know, you get shot down in flames. Without bringing her healthy into it, and as no one here is her doctor, it's best left alone. Yeah, I get that too, Matt Hazel. It's just annoying when Chase did it and just there's no repercussions for the bullshit they have to say. Yeah. She has 151 watching right now and only 6 participating in chat. It's the same few people in their chat supporting her. Yeah. But yeah, I do agree, May. Maybe I shouldn't be speaking about her because we can't prove anything, obviously. That's a fair call. But anyway, I might get off here. Been on for 2.5 hours. But yeah, that's been a little bit of, I thought, the Redheaded murders. Jenny, have you heard of the Redheaded murders? Oh, you're kidding. Now she's implying Prayer Garden of America is squall. No, I don't think so. But I only watch because she slips up sometimes. Grandma Mama's here. Holy crap. Hi, Grandma Mama. How are you? Oh, I feel so special. I understand why you do completely share a name with you. Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, May. I appreciate it. I just get a little triggered when it comes to faking cancer and stuff. You know? I haven't heard of them. I'm listening now. Yeah, it was a lot. Glad to see you live. Oh, thank you. Thank you guys for coming in. Yes, Cold Case Crystal, that'd be awesome if you could email me the footage and stuff. And yeah, Kramer Mama and Gavel Geeks, the Redhead murders serial killer thing that I started this live off with is yeah, sort of got my attention straight away. I was super interested. And then I started thinking about Rose Bly and being a redhead, and, you know, my brain was all over the place. Crazy. It's tricky. YouTube is tricky. Life is tricky. Stay out of sticky mud where you can. Absolutely, mate. Oh. It's so weird because I see you guys saying how hot it is over there at the moment. And it is absolutely freezing here. Like 9 degrees is our top. That's Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. I should check it out before I go live. And the wind and the rain, and it's just horrible. But there's still some birds out there singing. But anyway, guys, I better get off here and go and get little Miss Layla some afternoon tea. And I'll come back live tomorrow and see what else I can dig up tonight on what we were talking about earlier. And I'm going to email Dan Shanks, and hopefully he'll come on and have a chat with us tomorrow as well. 87. So is that like 30 degrees Celsius, Crystal? And we need to be thinking of Griffey. She's really sick with the big C again. She sort of, the whole family had it, even the grandmother and the kids and Stella and Griffey, and they all sort of got better. And then Griffey got it for a second time, and it's really, really got her bad. She did a little live yesterday, and she could hardly breathe. I was actually really scared for her. So I hope she's getting some medicine into her and feeling better soon. Get him. Yeah, it would be gymnastics. I'm going to email him after I have a coffee, and I'm sure they, like when I emailed him the other night to through the Facebook group to see if it was okay if I spoke about it and everything. He said, yeah, go for it. Let me know if I can help you out. So I think I might take him up on the offer, because it's better to talk directly to the source, like the family directly, than just to read off news clips off Google. More personable. He can tell us more about Tahnee and, you know, how the little one's going, little Addie. It's just so sad. So if anyone can share I'll put some community posts up with the missing flyers for Tahnee Shanks, and yeah, if we could get it around Mexico area, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? The more people that see it, that can share it and share it, I think that would be awesome. But anyway, guys, I better go. I need a cigarette and food and a coffee. I spelled her name wrong again. Oh, cry my mama. I see what you mean, gamer guy. I don't think Adrian would mind. She's just beautiful. I can't believe they both come in here. I'm like a little fangirl right now. Bizzle, okay. Oh, Bizzle, Gabble Cakes, and Cry My Mama. I do feel very loved, and I love you all for coming in today. And what is wrong? Oh, there's nothing wrong with you, gamer guy. I appreciate you too. You have 19 watching. She has 143, and you still have more chat participants. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Gavel Geeks. Yeah. I used to get super paranoid about not having enough people in chat compared to, you know, Jody Sue or Prayer Garden or whatever, but it honestly does not bother me anymore. Oh, Fizzle's just, she's my little adopted daughter. I just love Fizzle to death. She's so good to me, and I'm so proud of her. Like, she's just an amazing little woman. She just blows my mind with the way she thinks and the way she tries to bring people together and for the good. And like, don't go pissing her off, because we all know she can give what, you know, she can hold her own. Let's just say that. But she is beautiful. And she really does just want people to get along like we all do. Yeah, she does rock, Jenny. But yeah, I don't worry about the whether I got 20 in here or... We've always had little chats, and that's fine with me. I just appreciate people who do come in. Like, it's awesome. And, you know, the best part about having little chats is it's more personable, and you don't have all the drama and trolls and stuff like that either. It's super chilled, and we don't have to put up with the rubbish. Oh, you're still here, Casey. I'm sub to you, Crystal. Yes, I'm sub to Chris. Is Crystal here too now? Oh, no, Cold Case Crystal, yep. Yep, I'm sub to Cold Case. And I will check my email for you, Cold Case. But thanks, guys. I better go. Hubby's back for the third time. He'll say, you're still on there. I love you all, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.